Well, welcome back, and our guest tonight is Dr. Danny Lamm, President of the Zionist Council of Victoria. Danny, welcome to the program.
Welcome, Greg.
Will,
Peter?
not should, but will, in your view, Israel bomb Iran?
Israel may well have to. It may be that there's nobody else out there who is really going to achieve a result where Iran pulls back from its attempts to be nuclear efficient and to be able to be nuclear armed. Israel would prefer, and I've just been in Israel in the last 2 weeks, and Israel would prefer unquestionably that diplomacy should work. They're hanging out for diplomacy. They've given the opportunities, they've discussed it with all the major powers, with the Americans, with the Russians, with the French, with the Germans, all of them, to discuss getting Iran to pull back from the nuclear brink. Because if and when Iran should become able to deliver a nuclear bomb, then its president has made it very clear that he has intention to wipe Israel off the map. Now, we have an experience Jewishly to know that when things are said, they are meant, and we believe it. We had that experience before the Holocaust, and it took place, and the world didn't believe it. Now, so just in the last few days, we had a fast day, and the fast day commemorated the breaching of the walls of Jerusalem in 70 of this common era, 70 AD, when the Romans came through and they broke through the walls. And they broke through the walls and they destroyed Jerusalem, they destroyed the Holy Temple, the temple site on which Al-Aqsa stands today.
Now, Danny, we
have a long background.
Well, hang on, let me ask you this. If Prime Minister Olmert goes within the next few weeks, which seems is on the cards, or is potentially on the cards, the Foreign Minister in Israel, whose name I forget, but
Tzipi Livni,
or Ehud Barak, whoever took his place, what's their view on Iran, and would the policy position change?
The most likely scenario, were Olmert to go, is that he would be succeeded by Tzipi Livni, who is the Foreign Minister and who is in the same party.
Yep.
The likelihood of Barak taking over cannot happen because that can only happen with a general election.
Yep.
That can only happen where Labor withdraws from the coalition.
So is this new guy a hawk or not?
This new guy is a lady.
Is this new lady a hawk?
She comes from a hawkish background,
yes.
But she is very much in favour of diplomacy. Nevertheless, she has said that Israel cannot tolerate a situation where it will be threatened by nuclear attack.
Well, what's the military advice that any Prime Minister would be getting? What are the military saying? Are they saying that Iran are moving towards nuclear capacity?
That is definitely the case. There's no question about it. You did mention before, Greg, Ephraim Halevi. He still holds that view, that they're not there yet.
That's the former head of Mossad we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, he also holds the view that by the end of 2009 they won't do it. So one of the considerations that's coming up now is there are going to be elections in Iran in mid-2009, and one of the considerations is that Ahmadinejad might get tipped out. He might get tipped out because there are a lot of Iranians who don't want to see Iran butchered in the inevitable war that will follow.
Well, I think one of the other points about him too is that Iran is suffering terribly, or the Iranian people are suffering terribly as a result of sanctions, which are really now starting to bite. I mean, I said before the break that we've now got...
the mullahs control the election. It doesn't really matter.
Hang on, Peter. Just hang on one second.
The mullahs control the election, so it doesn't matter what the people want.
Well, they didn't control him.
These people are mad.
Ahmadinejad came to the floor despite the mullahs. Remember that. He was the populist. He was the outsider. He was the one that came in that the mullahs didn't want.
But he in his quotes is quoting Ayatollah Khomeini.
Yeah.
So he doesn't. It just doesn't come from nothing.
Oh, no, I didn't say that. But what I'm saying is that he wasn't the mullahs candidate. But what you're saying is that if he loses the election, and you get someone more like Hatimi, who was the previous president.
You might get somebody who might be prepared to pull back.
They need to back off pretty quickly.
They'd have to back off very much so, and it's entirely possible the nuclear development could continue unabated. It's all possible. There are other things that you mentioned. You talk about the potential for oil prices to go through the roof. Yeah, oil prices do. I mean, when Shaul Mofaz, one of the Israeli ministers, said that Israel may have to attack Iran, the next day the prices shot up. That's a reality.
And it has been. It went down late last week. on the basis of the Geneva talks over the weekend.
Okay.
It dropped to $129 for the first time in months.
Now, the issue of what leverage Iran has on oil is not so clear because Iran's production is very limited.
Yeah.
It's 2.5 million barrels a day. That's a nothing. It's a drop compared to what oil's produced. And furthermore, most of its oil remains either in the country or it goes to the Far East, to a so-called neutral in this whole reaction. So that's not going to make a big difference. You talked about the impact on the Straits of Hormuz. They will unquestionably scream that they want to do that, but there are all sorts of problems doing that. A, it means they won't have oil, their oil won't go out, and their own people are going to start screaming because they're not going to be in a situation where they'll have oil, and at the same time, I don't think militarily they'll be able to hold
Danny,
that.
can I just ask you this? It's going to be difficult for Israel to wipe out the nuclear development capacities because it's spread around the country. Some of it's underground, some of it's in populated areas. Now, but let's assume for the minute that Israel attacks and tries to do that, but it fails. Would Israel then use nuclear capacity? Would they then make a nuclear attack to wipe out the nuclear facilities which conventional bombing had failed to do so?
I can only express a personal view, but there have been people who have said that if Israel is attacked to the point where it might be decimated, and that's exactly what Ahmadinejad said. He used the word annihilate.
Yes.
He talked about if that situation, Israel will not go down without doing whatever it can to protect itself, and if it has to use a nuclear option, then it would.
I'm talking about preemptive. Let's say the conventional bombing fails because of the precautions the Iranians have taken. So Israel plays that card, it doesn't work because the Iranians are still going ahead. Would they then use a nuclear weapon?
I don't know the answer to that, and I don't think anybody knows because it's never been tested.
Well, the picture you paint, the picture that's being painted through Peter's questions too, is that this is so serious, given that no one wants to see nuclear capacity utilised. No one would want to see that, as opposed to it might have to be used. The diplomacy, we've still got a fair way to go down a diplomatic path. One of the issues that's arisen in the last week, which has surprised everyone, is the Bush administration making overtures to Iran. You know, William F. Burns was at the Geneva talks. It's talking about putting a very, very minor informal diplomatic post back in Tehran. What's driving the US? Because I know Ehud Barak is in Washington this week with General Ashkenazi. What's the message they're going to be giving the Bush administration, and what's driving the US, in your view, in its sort of softer approach on Iran?
Look, you mentioned it also before. US is affected by what's going on in Iraq, even though they're doing very well by all accounts. But Afghanistan, there are serious problems developing there. They've got two areas of conflict at the moment, and there are people in the American military who are concerned about America going the next step and taking off Iran. And clearly Israel would want to have that relationship with America. And we have to remember that for Israel to go and attack Iran, it's got to fly over American-controlled space in Iraq. In other words, the American president's got to be on side. This American president is on side. This American president would not stand by and allow Israel to be in such a situation.
But would any American president allow
Barack Obama
hang on. Barack Obama wouldn't.
He'd let Israel go.
I can't imagine any American president who would allow Israel to be obliterated, or even the threat of obliteration getting to the point where it's almost a certainty. No American president would do it.
I agree with you, but for that to happen, there has to be a preparation. You can't just do it from in the split of an eye.
Yeah, sure.
It's got to be done very, very quickly. So there has to be preparation. Now, I think Gabi Ashkenazi, who's a very serious Chief of Staff, there's never been a Chief of Staff, in my opinion, who's been more in contact with the soldier on the field and at the same time with the upper echelon, serious soldier. And he will be going along there, and I think he'll be saying it straight out. This is a situation. This is very, very dire. America has to confront it. And now it's not a coincidence that Israel flew 100 jet sorties over the Mediterranean. I mean, that is not an accident. They're saying this is like a shot over the bow. They're saying, get serious, understand this is getting closer because Israel may have to do it.
Danny, we have to wind up, and just let me ask you one from left field. Do you think at some stage we'll get to the point someone's going to have to put Mecca on the table? In other words, if there's a nuclear attack on Israel, Israel will have a nuclear attack on Mecca.
I don't think so. I'm sorry, I don't think so. Israel has never made religious targets religious sites a target and had many opportunities. It's the experience that Israel has had. Israel came in after 67 and found all the Jewish sites had been destroyed by the Jordanians. Everything had been destroyed. Israel has never done that. They've never attacked any sites. I don't think that'll happen. No, I think what will happen is they will aim for where they believe those targets are, where those nuclear things, and that's what will happen. They'll do the very best. They did it in Osirak. They did it now in Syria a week ago, last year, and if they have to do it, they'll do it. The tragedy is that the world stands by and hasn't reacted quickly enough. And we've seen it in other places in the world.
And we'll have to leave it there, Peter.
Yes, I'm sorry we have to go. It goes quickly, doesn't it? Thank you very much. That's Danny Lamm, the President of the Victorian Zionist Council, and we will be back after this break.